Introduction. Sarah had always believed she had the perfect marriage. At least that's what it seemed like to the outside world. She and her husband, Daniel, had been together for 8 years, and in that time, they had built a life that many would envy. They lived in a cozy suburban house with a neatly trimmed lawn, 2 cars parked in the driveway, and a golden retriever named Max, who always greeted them with a wagging tail. Sarah's days followed a predictable yet comfortable rhythm. She woke up early, made coffee, and prepared breakfast while Daniel got ready for work. They would sit together at the kitchen table, discussing their plans for the day, his meetings, her errands, and what they might watch on Netflix later. Then, with a kiss on the cheek and a quick "love you," Daniel would grab his briefcase and head out the door. After dropping their 6-year-old daughter Emma at school, Sarah would return home to tidy up the house. She wasn't just a housewife. She was the backbone of the family, managing everything from groceries to doctor's appointments to remembering birthdays. In the afternoons, she worked on her freelance graphic design projects, a job that gave her the flexibility to be there for Emma and still pursue her passion for creativity. On the surface, life was good. Daniel was a devoted husband, or so she thought. He was charming, affectionate, and always made an effort to spend time with her and Emma. On weekends, they would go on family outings, visiting the zoo, having picnics in the park, or simply staying in and playing board games. But lately, Sarah had started to notice little things, things that didn't quite add up. Daniel had been coming home later than usual, blaming work deadlines and last-minute meetings. His phone, which used to lie carelessly on the coffee table, was now always in his pocket. He had changed his passcode, something he had never done before, and sometimes late at night she would wake up to find him missing from their bed, only to hear faint whispers from the living room. At first she brushed it off. Maybe she was overthinking things. After all, Daniel had never given her a reason to doubt him before. But as the days went on, her gut told her otherwise. Something was wrong. And the worst part? She had no idea what it was. Sarah tried to push the thoughts away, convincing herself that she was being paranoid. But deep down, she knew. She needed to find out the truth. And what she would discover would change everything. This sets up the perfect mix of tension and intrigue for what's to come. Want any adjustments to the tone or details? Suspicious behavior. Sarah had never been the jealous or paranoid type. She trusted Daniel. He was her husband, her partner, her best friend. But lately, something felt off. It started subtly at first. Daniel would come home later than usual, always with a perfectly reasonable excuse. "Work has been crazy," he would sigh, loosening his tie. "You know how it is. Last-minute meetings, deadlines, clients breathing down my neck." Sarah wanted to believe him. After all, he had always been hard-working. But something about the way he said it, avoiding eye contact, rushing past her into the bedroom, made her uneasy. Then came the phone calls. At odd hours, his phone would buzz, and he would immediately silence it. If Sarah was nearby, he would casually glance at the screen and say, "Just work stuff," before slipping the phone into his pocket. And then, one night, she woke up at 2 a.m. to find the bed beside her empty. Frowning, she got up and tiptoed toward the living room. The glow of his phone screen illuminated his face as he whispered urgently into it, "No, I can't talk now. Yes, I'll see you soon." Sarah's heart pounded. Who was he talking to? When she stepped forward, the floor creaked beneath her foot, and Daniel jumped, shoving the phone into his pocket. He turned to her with an awkward smile. "Hey, couldn't sleep?" She crossed her arms. "Who were you talking to?" He hesitated, a split second too long. "Just a colleague. We've got a big project coming up." Lies. She could feel it. Over the next few days, the strange behavior continued. He started showering as soon as he got home, something he had never done before. His shirt smelled faintly of an unfamiliar perfume. And then there was the strangest thing of all, his sudden interest in fashion. Daniel, the man who used to roll his eyes at shopping trips, had started buying expensive colognes and dressing more sharply for work. Something was definitely going on, and Sarah was determined to find out what. This keeps the mystery and tension building. Let me know if you want to add more details or change the tone. Curiosity sparks. Sarah tried to ignore the gnawing feeling in her gut, but it was impossible. Every little thing Daniel did now seemed suspicious. The secret phone calls, the sudden late nights, the unexplained absences. It was all too much to dismiss as coincidence. One evening, as she sat on the couch scrolling through her phone, Daniel walked into the bedroom with his laptop and shut the door behind him. That wasn't normal. He usually worked in the living room, claiming he liked to be around her and Emma even when he was busy. Sarah put her phone down and crept toward the door, pressing her ear against it. Silence. Then, faintly, the sound of typing. Her heart pounded as she hesitated, debating whether to barge in or wait. Before she could decide, Daniel opened the door abruptly, almost crashing into her. "Whoa, what are you doing?" he asked, startled. She forced a casual smile. "Just coming to see if you wanted coffee." He hesitated, his eyes scanning her face as if trying to gauge whether she had been listening. Then he let out a small chuckle and shook his head. "No thanks. Just swamped with work." Sarah nodded, but her mind was racing. Work again? It was always work. But what if it wasn't? That night, while Daniel was in the shower, Sarah decided she couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed his phone from the nightstand and tried his old passcode. It didn't work. Her chest tightened as she tried a few more combinations, but nothing unlocked it. He had changed it. Her hands trembled as she placed the phone back exactly as it was, just as Daniel walked back into the room. He eyed her briefly, running a towel through his hair, before climbing into bed. "Everything okay?" he asked, his tone light, but there was something guarded in his expression. Sarah forced a smile. "Yeah, just thinking." The next morning, she took things a step further. As soon as Daniel left for work, she went through his closet, searching for anything unusual. That's when she found it, tucked behind his suits in a small shoebox. A receipt. Her fingers tightened around the thin slip of paper as she read it. An expensive dinner at a fancy restaurant she had never been to. Last Friday night. The night he had claimed to be working late. Sarah's stomach dropped. Something was going on. And now, she had proof. The only question left was, what was Daniel really up to? This builds up Sarah's growing suspicion and sets the stage for her next move. Let me know if you want any tweaks. The clue. Sarah sat at the kitchen table, staring at the crumpled receipt in her hand. The date and time were clear. Friday night at 8:42 p.m., a reservation for two at Le Jardin, one of the most expensive restaurants in town. Her pulse quickened. That was the night Daniel had claimed he was stuck at the office, working late on a client project. But this receipt told a different story, one that didn't include conference calls or deadlines. She turned the paper over, hoping for more clues, and that's when she saw it. Light, smudged, almost like an afterthought. A name, or at least part of one. Sophie. The ink was faint, as if someone had hurriedly scribbled it down. Sarah's mind raced. Who was Sophie? A coworker? A friend? Or something worse? Determined to find out more, she went back to Daniel's closet, searching through the shoebox where she had found the receipt. Inside, she found something even stranger, a small velvet pouch. Her fingers tingled as she opened it. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet, the kind she would have loved to receive as a gift. But Daniel hadn't given it to her. Sarah's breath hitched. The bracelet had an engraving on the inside. She squinted, her hands trembling as she read the words. For S. Her stomach twisted. S for Sophie? She had tried to convince herself that she was overreacting, that maybe Daniel really was just busy with work. But now? Now she had proof that something was going on. She clenched the receipt in one hand and the bracelet in the other. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was real, and she was going to find out the truth. This keeps the tension rising and gives Sarah a solid reason to dig deeper. Let me know if you want to tweak any details. The setup. Sarah had always trusted her instincts, and right now they were screaming at her. Something was definitely wrong. The receipt, the name Sophie, the bracelet. It was all too much to ignore. If Daniel was lying to her, she needed to know for sure. Sitting at the kitchen table, she took a deep breath and pulled out her phone. If Daniel was meeting someone, he wouldn't just stop because she was suspicious. He would keep doing whatever he was doing. He just wouldn't expect her to follow him. She decided on a plan. Step 1. Check his schedule. She casually asked him about his plans for the week, acting as if she wasn't suspicious at all. As expected, he told her he'd be working late on Thursday and Friday. Big project deadlines, he said. Step 2. Set up a trap. Sarah knew Daniel always checked his messages in the bathroom before bed. That night, as he showered, she peeked at his phone from a distance. The screen lit up with a new message from an unknown number. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, same place." Her heart pounded. That was it, confirmation. But she needed more than just a message. Step 3. Follow him. The next evening, she kissed him goodbye as he left for work, then grabbed her car keys and followed him at a distance. He drove straight to Le Jardin, the same fancy restaurant from the receipt. From the parking lot, she watched as he stepped inside. A few minutes later, a woman arrived, a tall brunette in a red dress. Sarah's stomach twisted as she watched Daniel greet her. He leaned in, too close, smiling, laughing. It wasn't just a work meeting. Sarah clenched the steering wheel. She had seen enough. But she wasn't done yet. She needed more proof, and she knew exactly how to get it. This builds up the tension as Sarah sets her plan in motion. Want to add any more drama or details? The shocking discovery. Sarah's hands trembled as she held her phone, ready to snap a picture of Daniel and the mystery woman. From her hidden spot in the parking lot, she watched them through the restaurant's large windows. The woman in the red dress leaned forward, smiling as Daniel pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Sarah's stomach twisted. A ring? Her breath hitched. Was he really about to propose? To someone else? She gritted her teeth, ready to storm inside and confront him. But just as she reached for the door handle, something unexpected happened. The woman burst into laughter, shaking her head. Then she hugged Daniel, not romantically, but warmly, like old friends. Daniel grinned, sliding the ring box across the table toward her. Sarah's eyes narrowed. What was going on? Determined to get the truth, she pulled up her hood, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. Keeping her distance, she slid into a booth near them, close enough to hear but hidden behind a menu. The woman sighed, holding the ring up to the light. "I can't believe you did this, Danny." Daniel chuckled. "Come on, Soph, it's the least I could do. Mom would have wanted you to have it." Sarah's heart stopped. "Mom." The woman, Sophie, smiled softly. "She always said this belonged to me. But after she passed, I thought it was lost forever." Daniel shook his head. "I kept it safe. I know things were rough between us after Dad remarried, but you're still my sister." Sarah's jaw dropped. Sister? A wave of relief and embarrassment washed over her. She had been ready to catch him cheating, but instead, he was reconnecting with a half-sister he had barely spoken to in years. Sarah sat back, processing everything. She had let her doubts spiral, convinced herself of the worst. And now, she was the one who had been caught. Caught assuming the worst about the man she loved. She exhaled, stood up, and walked toward their table. Daniel's eyes widened in shock. "Sarah? What are you doing here?" She gave him a sheepish smile. "I think I should be the one answering that." This twist keeps the drama high while delivering an unexpected and emotional revelation. Let me know if you want a different outcome. Confrontation. Daniel stared at Sarah, his fork frozen midair, his expression shifting from shock to confusion. Sophie, the woman in red, turned to look at her with wide eyes. "Sarah?" Daniel finally said, slowly placing his utensils down. "What are you doing here?" Sarah crossed her arms, trying to ignore the heat rushing to her face. She had prepared for an explosive confrontation, but now, standing in front of him, her confidence wavered. "I should be asking you that," she said, her voice sharper than she intended. "You told me you were working late, and yet here you are, having dinner with Her. She shot a glance at Sophie, who raised an eyebrow. Daniel's brows furrowed. Wait, you think... He exhaled, shaking his head with a small, incredulous laugh. You think I'm cheating? Sarah's stomach twisted, but she held her ground. I found the restaurant receipt. I saw the messages. And then tonight, I followed you here. Daniel blinked. You followed me? Sophie stifled a laugh, but Sarah shot her a glare. Who is she, Daniel? Sophie cleared her throat and leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. I'm his sister, she said, amusement evident in her voice. Nice to finally meet you, Sarah. Sarah's breath caught. His... what? Daniel sighed, rubbing his temples. I was going to tell you, Sarah, but I wanted to make sure everything was right before bringing it up. Sophie is my half-sister. We lost touch after my mom passed, and we've been reconnecting. He gestured toward the small box on the table. This was our mom's ring. She left it for Sophie, but it got misplaced after Dad remarried. I tracked it down for her. Sarah felt like the ground had been pulled out from under her. She had spent days convinced of the worst, following clues she thought pointed to betrayal, only to find herself standing in the middle of a restaurant, accusing her husband of cheating when all he had been doing was making amends with family. Heat flooded her cheeks as she looked at Sophie, who was still watching her with mild amusement. Oh, Sarah swallowed hard. I'm so sorry. Sophie waved her off with a chuckle. Honestly, I'm kind of flattered. Didn't think I'd be mistaken for a mistress tonight. Daniel let out a deep sigh and looked at Sarah with an unreadable expression. You really thought I was cheating? Sarah fidgeted under his gaze. I didn't want to think that, but you were acting so secretive. You changed your passcode. You were taking late-night calls. What was I supposed to think? Daniel ran a hand through his hair. The passcode? I changed it because Emma kept ordering random stuff on my phone. The calls? Sophie and I were planning to meet, and I wasn't sure how to tell you about it yet. He sighed again, softer this time. Sarah, you could have just asked me. She felt a lump in her throat. He was right. Instead of jumping to conclusions, instead of sneaking around behind his back, she could have just talked to him. I'm sorry, she whispered. Daniel studied her for a moment before shaking his head with a small smile. Well, I guess I should be flattered that you care enough to go full detective mode on me. Sophie laughed. Yeah, she was pretty thorough. Maybe I should hire her if I ever lose anything again. Sarah let out a nervous chuckle, finally allowing herself to breathe. The tension in her chest loosened, replaced by relief and a little bit of embarrassment. Dinner's on me, she blurted, looking at Sophie. To make up for, accusing you of ruining my marriage. Sophie grinned. Deal. Daniel shook his head, smiling. I think I'll need a drink after this. Sarah reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. I think I will too. This keeps the tension and emotion high, but ends on a slightly humorous and heartfelt note. Let me know if you want to adjust the tone. The twist. Sarah sat across from Daniel and Sophie, her mind still spinning from the revelation. She had been so sure, so certain, that he was cheating. But now? Now she felt ridiculous. Daniel sighed, leaning forward. Sarah, I understand why you were suspicious. I was keeping secrets, but I swear it wasn't what you thought. She rubbed her temples. I just don't get why you couldn't tell me about this from the start. Sophie cleared her throat. Well, there's actually more to the story. Sarah's eyes snapped to hers. More? Daniel exchanged a glance with Sophie before looking back at Sarah. He hesitated for a moment before finally speaking. I wasn't just reconnecting with Sophie, he admitted. I was planning something big. Sarah's heart started racing again. Planning what? Daniel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. He slid it across the table. Open it. With shaky hands, Sarah picked it up and unfolded the paper inside. Her eyes scanned the words, then widened in shock. A house deed. Her gaze shot back up to Daniel. What is this? He smiled. I bought us a house, Sarah. A bigger one. I know you've been feeling overwhelmed lately, managing Emma, your work, everything at home. You've always wanted a studio space for your designs, and I wanted to give you that. So Sophie helped me find the perfect place. We were finalizing the paperwork this week. Sarah felt her throat tighten. You did all of this for me? Daniel chuckled. For us. And for Emma. I wanted it to be a surprise, but, well, I guess my secrecy backfired a little. Sarah covered her mouth with her hand, emotion overwhelming her. She had spent weeks doubting him, suspecting the worst, when all along he had been planning something incredible for their future. Tears pricked her eyes as she let out a breathless laugh. Oh my God, I'm an idiot, Sophie smirked. A little bit, yeah. Daniel reached for Sarah's hand, squeezing it gently. I love you, Sarah. I would never betray you. But maybe next time, if something feels off, just ask me before hiring a private investigator. She laughed through her tears. Noted. Sophie grinned. So, can I still keep the ring? Daniel rolled his eyes. Yes, Sophie, you can keep the ring. Sarah looked at the deed again, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had braced herself for heartbreak, but instead, she had found something entirely unexpected. Love, commitment, and a future brighter than she ever imagined. And this time, she wouldn't let doubt cloud what was right in front of her. This twist flips the entire story on its head and turns suspicion into an emotional, heartwarming moment. Let me know if you'd like any tweaks. Emotional impact. Sarah sat there, stunned, holding the house deed in her trembling hands. The weight of it was almost too much to comprehend. She had come into this restaurant expecting to confront her husband about the worst betrayal imaginable, and instead, she was holding the keys to their future. Her chest tightened with a mixture of relief, disbelief, and a rush of guilt. She had doubted him. She had let her insecurities cloud her judgment, and she had nearly torn apart the trust they'd built together. As her eyes welled up with tears, she looked at Daniel, who was watching her with an expression full of love and patience. The sincerity in his eyes was enough to undo the knots in her stomach. I'm so sorry, she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel reached out to gently wipe a tear from her cheek. Hey, no need to apologize. I should have communicated better. I should have been more open with you. But Sarah shook her head. Number, you shouldn't have had to. I should have trusted you more. A silence hung in the air, thick with emotion. Sophie, sensing the weight of the moment, leaned back in her chair, giving them space. The tension in Sarah's chest began to slowly dissipate, replaced by something warmer, softer. The realization hit her that Daniel's actions, the secrecy, the late nights, the guarded phone calls, were never about betrayal. They were about love, about creating a future they could share together. I never imagined this, she whispered, still holding the deed, still trying to wrap her mind around it all. Daniel smiled gently, his eyes filled with tenderness. I know you didn't, but I've been trying to show you how much I care, in my own way. He reached for her hand. This house, the surprise, all of it. It's because I love you. I want to build a life with you, Sarah. All of it. Even the messy parts. Sarah's heart swelled. You're crazy. Daniel grinned, his thumb tracing the back of her hand. You have no idea. Sophie chuckled softly from across the table. I'm just glad we're past the detective phase. I was getting worried you'd start tracking his credit card statements next. Sarah let out a small laugh, the tension finally breaking, and she squeezed Daniel's hand. She could feel the weight of her own insecurities lifting, replaced with the deep, overwhelming love she still had for him. I don't deserve you, she whispered, more to herself than to him. Daniel leaned in, brushing his lips against her forehead. Yes, you do. You always have. And in that moment, with the weight of her doubts finally dissipating and the truth revealed, Sarah realized something. Trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. But love when it was given freely and unconditionally, had the power to heal even the deepest of wounds. They sat there for a few moments longer, letting the silence between them speak louder than words ever could. Then, Sophie stood up, stretching and looking between them. "So, now that we've gotten all the drama out of the way," she said with a grin, "can we go check out that house?" Sarah laughed, the sound light and free, as Daniel stood up, pulling her gently into his arms. "I think that sounds like a perfect idea." And with that, everything changed. The mystery was solved, the secrets were laid bare, and together they would move forward, not as a couple full of doubt and suspicion, but as a family ready to embrace their future, warts and all. This conclusion brings emotional resolution with a mix of relief, love, and humor. The twist shifts the emotions from shock to understanding, allowing the characters to move forward in a positive way. Let me know if you'd like any changes. As Sarah and Daniel walked out of the restaurant together, the tension from earlier melted away. The cool evening air felt refreshing, a stark contrast to the suffocating weight of the past few days. She glanced up at him, her heart still racing, but now with the sweet thrill of reconciliation. Sophie waved them off with a playful grin, giving them the space they needed. "I'll see you both at the new house soon. Don't forget to pack, there's a lot of space to fill." Sarah laughed softly, waving back. It was surreal how much things had changed in just a few hours. One moment, she was convinced her marriage was falling apart, and the next, she was being handed a new beginning. "Thank you," she whispered as they walked toward their car, "for everything." Daniel smiled, his hand slipping into hers. "You don't have to thank me. I just want you to know that I'm in this with you. All of it. Always." They got into the car, and as Sarah buckled her seatbelt, she felt something shift deep inside her. This wasn't just about a house or a grand gesture. It was about the way Daniel had been there for her when she least expected it, offering not just a surprise gift, but the promise of a future they could both build together. As they drove, Sarah found herself thinking about all the times they'd overcome challenges together. Life wasn't always easy, but the one constant was their ability to communicate and face things head-on. Even if they stumbled, they would always find their way back to each other. The house was a symbol, one that represented new beginnings, trust, and a future Sarah hadn't even dared to imagine. It wasn't just four walls and a roof. It was a new chapter, one where the foundation wasn't built on secrets or assumptions, but on understanding and love. When they reached home, Daniel turned to her, his smile warm. "You still up for that tour?" Sarah looked at him, and for the first time in a long time she truly saw him. Not just her husband, but the man who cared for her, the one who had always been by her side, despite everything. "Absolutely," she said, her voice steady now, no longer laced with doubt. "Let's see our new home." And so they did, together, with love, laughter, and a whole new future ahead of them. This wraps up the story on a hopeful and uplifting note, with a strong sense of reconciliation and growth. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments to the ending.